When a kind-hearted waitress is fired for giving leftover food to a homeless man, she faces the devastating loss of her job and her sense of security. However, an unexpected twist reveals the man's true identity, turning her act of kindness into a life-changing opportunity. What follows is a journey of redemption, compassion, and second chances that will leave you inspired. This heartwarming story will keep you hooked until the final, breathtaking moment. The emotional twist at the end will completely change how you see the power of small acts of kindness. But before we dive in, leave a comment and let us know where you are watching from today. And if this story speaks to you, hit that subscribe button for more amazing stories. In the warm, bustling interior of Sunny's diner, the scent of sizzling bacon and fresh coffee filled the air. Emily Carter, a waitress in her late 20s, moved gracefully between tables, balancing plates and offering cheerful smiles to her regulars. Emily had worked at the diner for 3 years, and though the job was demanding, she took pride in it. The pay wasn't much, but it helped her support her younger brother, Jacob, who was in college. That evening, the diner was winding down after the dinner rush. The fluorescent lights flickered faintly, and the last few customers sipped their coffee while chatting quietly. As Emily wiped down a booth near the window, she noticed a figure lingering outside. A man, bundled in layers of tattered clothing, stood near the dumpster, his posture slouched and defeated. Emily glanced at the clock. It was almost closing time. The sight of the man tugged at her heart. He looked cold and hungry, his gaunt face partially hidden by a knit cap. As the last customer left, Emily approached the kitchen, where the cook was packing up leftovers. "Hey, Joe," she said softly, "are we tossing that out?" Joe glanced at the tray of uneaten rolls, mashed potatoes, and chicken strips. "Yeah, corporate policy. You know the rules." Emily hesitated, glancing back at the window where the man stood. "What if I take it to someone who needs it?" Joe shrugged. "Do what you want, but if the boss finds out," he trailed off, his expression wary. Emily grabbed the tray and wrapped the food in foil. She stepped outside, the chilly night air biting her cheeks. The man looked up as she approached, his sunken eyes filled with surprise. "Hi," Emily said gently, holding out the food. "I thought you might be hungry." The man hesitated before taking it. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice hoarse but sincere. "You didn't have to do this." "It's no problem," Emily replied with a warm smile. "Take care of yourself." As she turned to head back inside, she didn't notice the small, grateful smile that spread across his face. The next morning, Emily's manager, Greg, stormed into the diner, his face red with anger. "Emily, my office, now." Confused, Emily followed him, wiping her hands on her apron. "What's wrong?" Greg slammed a security photo on the desk. It showed her handing the leftovers to the homeless man. "What is this?" he demanded. Emily's stomach sank. "I gave him some food. It was going to be thrown away anyway." "That's against company policy," Greg shouted. "Do you know how much trouble this could get us in? Liability, theft, corporate won't stand for it." "I was just trying to help," Emily said, her voice trembling. "It's the right thing to do." "Well, the right thing to do just cost you your job," Greg snapped. "You're fired. Clear out your locker." Emily's heart dropped. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes but refused to let them fall. She nodded stiffly and walked out, her mind racing. How would she pay rent? Support Jacob? That evening, Emily sat in a nearby park, her head in her hands. The city lights twinkled in the distance, but her thoughts were clouded with despair. She didn't regret helping the man, but she couldn't shake the fear of what came next. "Miss?" A voice interrupted her thoughts. Emily looked up, startled. It was the homeless man from the night before. He looked cleaner, his face freshly washed, though his clothes were still worn. In his hands, he held a paper bag. I didn't mean to bother you," he said. "I just wanted to say thank you. What you did meant a lot." Emily managed a small smile. "You're welcome. I'm glad you're okay." The man hesitated, then sat down on the bench beside her. "You're kind," he said, his tone thoughtful. "Kindness isn't as common as it should be." They talked for a while, and Emily learned his name, Henry. He'd fallen on hard times after losing his job and struggling with medical bills. Despite everything, he spoke with dignity, and Emily found herself admiring his resilience. A few days later, Emily was job hunting, her savings dwindling rapidly. As she walked home from yet another unsuccessful interview, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. "Hello," she answered hesitantly. "Is this Emily Carter?" a warm voice asked. "Yes, who's this?" "My name is Jonathan Blake," the man replied. "I work with the Henry Scott Foundation. We'd like to meet with you." Emily's brow furrowed. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place it. "Why, you were recommended for a position by Mr. Henry Scott himself." Emily's heart raced. "I don't know anyone named Henry Scott." Jonathan chuckled. "You do, actually. You met him outside Sonny's diner." Emily sat in stunned silence as the pieces clicked into place. The homeless man she had helped wasn't just Henry. He was Henry Scott, the founder of a multimillion-dollar charity focused on housing and employment for the homeless. 2 days later, Emily walked into a sleek office building, her nerves a mix of excitement and disbelief. She was greeted by Jonathan, who led her to a spacious conference room. There, Henry sat waiting, now dressed in a tailored suit. "Emily," he said warmly, standing to greet her. "It's good to see you again." Emily blinked, still processing the transformation. I don't understand. Why didn't you tell me?" Henry smiled. "Sometimes, you see the true character of people when they think no one is watching. Your kindness that night reminded me why I started this foundation. I'd like to offer you a position on our team." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "But I don't have experience in this kind of work." "You have what matters most," Henry replied. "Compassion, integrity, and the courage to do the right thing, even when it costs you." Over the next few months, Emily flourished in her new role, coordinating outreach programs and helping people get back on their feet. Her story spread, inspiring others to act with kindness and reminding them that even small actions could have profound effects. Henry and Emily worked closely together, launching new initiatives to address food waste and expand housing for the homeless. Emily's efforts earned her recognition, and she became a voice for compassion in her community. One evening, as she stood on stage at a charity gala, Emily shared her story. "Kindness doesn't just change lives, it creates ripples. You may never know how far those ripples reach, but trust me, they matter." In the audience, Henry smiled proudly, knowing he had made the right choice. Years later, Emily often looked back on that fateful night at the diner. Losing her job had felt like the end, but it turned out to be the beginning of something far greater. And for every person she helped, she remembered the lesson Henry taught her: kindness is never wasted. And in the end, she realized that single act of giving leftover food had changed her life, and countless others, for the better.